Hey everyone, thanks for tuning back to the Davidson podcast. This is episode 125 with Joseph Bologna. I got it right?
You got it.
Who is a contributing author on Redefining Masculinity and contributed the wonderful cover that you all have in front of you. So thank you so much. I have this book right in front of me right now. This beautiful cover. Yeah, I think there's been over 500 copies that have been sold out already. So
Wow. Wow.
yeah,
Excellent.
yeah.
Good
I think
moving.
my goal is to sell 1,000 myself. So I've already sold like 250 copies. Like, yeah, and then
Actually, I'm doing my best to push everything. I've got, believe it or not, this book is more women are reading this book than I was
yeah,
aware of.
yeah, you're
That's pretty
right.
crazy. Yeah.
It is crazy. Yeah. But yeah, I appreciate your contributions. Like so it seems like you've been writing a lot of books nowadays. You're working with Donna on some things. Um,
Well, Donna is just out of control when it comes to creativity. We would be sitting there, for example. One night we were sitting there, and I just said to her, uh, we were looking at a menu, and
Mhm.
I used the wrong word. And I said, I'm looking at this menu and there's a lot of possibilities. And all of a sudden she jumps up and she goes, Possibilities, that's a book. We're going to do that book.
Oh, that's so cute. Yeah.
So she decided that she would call everybody she knows to collect recipes, and I'm supposed to do the photography work of all of their
Wow,
original creations. And that's
that's
her
pretty
book.
cool. Yeah,
That's how she operates.
that's amazing. Yeah, I love the vibrant energy and the partnership that you guys have together. Like it's beautiful. Uh, what advice would you give to others who are seeking someone who's like their other half or their counterpart? I feel like a lot of people are looking for it, but aspire to have a relationship like yours.
Well, we bring different things to the table. So we
Hmm.
try to stay in our own lanes. And and that's pretty important. Micromanaging on a consistent basis is never going to work in a partnership.
Mm.
So everybody has to do what they're best at.
Hmm.
She is the creative force, and her the writing that she comes up with is amazing. Actually, she was the inspiration for me to do redefining masculinity. It wasn't in my thought process to do that. She pushed it,
Huh.
insisted, you need to do this. You've got something to say. Um,
Mm.
she she thinks that I'm good at that, and probably she thinks more about that than I am good at that.
Aw.
But she pushes hard,
Yeah.
and eventually I get to a point where I say, okay, all right, I'll give it a shot.
Mm.
So I wrote that in about 2 days, and it was some of it was painful. Looking back at a lot of that stuff, you have to open a lot of doors that I thought were closed. A lot of parts of my life that I was really not going to visit again.
Hmm.
And then writing this out, I used well, it started. Let me start from the beginning. You gave us a select group of templates for
Mhm.
consideration. And interestingly, every one of these authors chose a different template.
Hmm.
So the book itself is very, very, uh, how do you say, what's the word? Not divisive. it's not, it's not divisive. It's everybody's point of view is just so different. They all took a different tack on this, and I loved it. I really found it interesting. I'm a big fan of the book. You know, it was great getting together with these guys prior. You
Oh
know, when
yeah.
we did a couple of Zooms together to get to know each other and what our thoughts were and who we were and how we're going to do this. You know, it was all it was a good boys club going on there for a bit. You know,
Yeah.
different points of view are amazing. They just really are amazing. But
Mm.
I took the tack of using role models as my biggest influence. And primarily, a lot of these role models were not real people. You know, they were action figures growing up, comic book figures. They were movie people. In the book, I gave reference to watching the Magnificent Seven when I was small. Watching Yul Brenner, he's this badass. We're dressed all in black, and he's the good guy. You know, and I remember thinking, I want to be that guy. That's pretty cool. You know, I can do that. I need to do that. You know, they all had a bigger. They got involved in things bigger than themselves. You
Mm.
know, some of my role models were like in Greek mythology, the tales of Ulysses. This guy was
Mm.
just going all over the world and the adventures and the things that he got involved with. Uh, I was fascinated as a kid with
Mm.
all of this stuff. You know, Stan Lee was another one. He created all of these mutants in comic books, but the mutants basically were standing in line for as the outliers in society.
Mm.
You know, and that was his primary goal was to show people that because you're different doesn't mean you need to be afraid. People don't need to be afraid of people and things that are different.
Mm.
You know, and the more people are different, the more they really want to be like everybody else.
Mm.
You know, that's it's pretty crazy. So these people, these things were my role models here, and I took them all pretty seriously. The other thing I did was, you know, I was a small kid, so I was always in the library. You know, everybody else was out playing games and everything, and I just spent so much time reading. Anything, it didn't matter. Science books, history books, uh, geography books. My first book that I ever read, it was a story about an island, I thought. And then years later, I realized the word was island, and it was a geography book.
That's hilarious.
I was just reading the words. I had no idea what the hell I was reading, but
Huh.
you know, I just kept trying to read words and try to figure them out as I went along.
Yeah.
So, and eventually I got to do that, you know, using that geography situation, traveling the whole world
Mm.
and shooting it with my photography. And Donna used those photos in her spiritual books. All the places that I've ever been around the globe, shooting these amazing spiritual places, she put them into her book. And well, and she's an author in her own right. She did a thing with Liz, Transformation 2020.
Yeah.
So she's a member of the Hive.
It's a good community. Like you mentioned, I when I was a young kid as well, I used to read a lot too. I mean, I still read a lot, but I remember I used to read a lot more like fantasy and sci-fi and more like Redwall. I was like really into that series, like Ender's Game. You know, there were certain like Lord of the Rings, there were certain books that I couldn't put down. Like I would spend 15 hours a day just finishing the book, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned Lord of the Rings. You know, it's on my bucket list to get to New Zealand.
Oh yeah.
I really need to see that. You know,
Yeah.
I watched all of those movies because of the cinematography.
Mm,
Although the story was incredible,
mm,
it's the same story about good versus evil,
yeah.
just like Star Wars, just like Moby Dick. You know,
Hmm.
there's always a good guy and the bad guy, and the conflict. So it's been quite a journey, you know. And anyway, getting back to the book, I use the four archetypes of the mature masculine. It's called. I broke down the stereotypical parts of a man, and they are the king, the magician, the warrior, and the lover. You know, our lives are intertwined with those four concepts. Each one of them brings character strengths to us. How we use them is what defines us. So in the story, I simply uh, recognized what it did for me, each one of those things, how it related to me, and how I used it or misused it. So that was my go-to in the book. If I had we had constraints on the book, which were X amount of pages or words.
Yeah.
Rereading it, I would have rewritten it a different way, I think.
Huh.
But I like it the way it is, and I obviously other people do as well. And I'm really, really proud to be a part of this book with these guys. You
Mm.
know, they're outstanding. They're all outstanding people. They really are.
If you don't mind sharing, like, what would you have done differently? Sounds like you thought about that.
I think that I would have been a little more detail oriented. You know, I passed on a couple of concepts and thoughts,
Mm.
but I would have delved a little more into how I got there, what I actually did with it in a little more detail.
Mm.
So but it's food for thought, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we did a part two, right? Because like you said, there's just so much that we can talk about in this topic.
Everybody has a story, but they're not always good stories. Oh, I lost you.
Oh no, I see you.
Donna, help.
Hang on. What just happened? What's that up
Oh,
there? I
I
can't see
have
it.
no idea, honey.
What does that say? Is that him? What does that say?
That's yeah, I gotta keep her around. I gotta keep her around a bit. Actually, I roped her in last week. We got engaged last week.
oh my God, congrats.
So she's sitting on the porch a lot, um, throwing the ring at the sun so it sparkles.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's all good. Yeah, yeah.
How did you
It's
two
gonna
meet?
be. How did we meet? Actually, I was playing in a rock and roll band, and she used to come down and listen.
Mm.
And she wanted to audition, and the guys in my band wanted her to audition, and I said no because I was the lead singer of the band, and I wasn't going to be upstaged because she was very, very good.
uh,
So we went on to play. You know, the band went on to record and tour, and I didn't hear from her for a while. Come to find out, she had moved out west, became a singer, and she was playing with top bands like Willie Nelson, Bonnie Raitt, the Grateful Dead, Maria Moldauer, and she made quite a splash in her own right. And she was into a lot of recording and touring.
mm.
About 3 years ago, um, she was playing at Blues on the Beach. It's called in Stratford. It's a It's a local fest. So she was headlining there one day. I saw the video, and I just wrote on Facebook, Donna, you're rocking the house."
Hmm.
And she got back to me, and we had coffee, and we started chatting about everything. And so 55 years later, here we are.
What?
And she reminds me every day that I didn't hire her. Every day.
Yeah. Yeah. That's funny.
But
Oh.
it's good though. And actually we still do sing. A little while ago, maybe about 2 months ago, my guitar player of 50 years ago called and said, that song we wrote, I want to re-record it. So can we get together? And he was up in Massachusetts. He said, yeah, it'll be fun. So he couldn't locate the female singer that we were using at the time. So Donna stepped in and she re-recorded it for him.
Huh.
And all of a sudden, he's back in action. He wants to do another re-recording of a few other things. So we're working with that too. It's never ending.
That's awesome. I feel like most people, it sounds like you're just getting started, whereas like most people would be winding down, you know what I mean, in terms of projects and stuff like that.
We get a lot of that because most people we do know are just kicking it down.
Yeah.
Actually, in next week I'll be 70. It's my birthday next week.
Oh, wow.
And when I retired from actual work, I thought I was going to sit on the porch and drink a beer, smoke a cigar, and not be bothered, watch the sunset. And Donna decided, no, we're not doing that. We're absolutely not doing it. So
Amazing.
we're very active. We really are.
Yeah.
A lot of this writing we do takes us to a great many places where we have to do interviews and a shoot, my shooting and everything.
Mm-hmm.
This next book coming up is she's co-authoring 25 authors. She's coordinating them.
Wow.
And using some of my photos, and that in and of itself is enough to keep you awake 7 days a week, just working with 25 authors.
Yeah, certainly.
And she's coordinating the whole thing, so she's a busy girl. She makes sure that I don't get lazy.
Nope, doesn't sound like it.
No, that's not going to happen. So that's about it. That's what we're doing.
What advice would you give to your 34-year-old self? I'm turning 34 this month, so.
I have a 34-year-old son.
Oh, perfect. So.
Yeah, and when he was in his teens, of course, he didn't. I was pretty stupid then, according to him. The older he gets, the smarter I get.
I know, right? Yeah. So true.
And the thing I realize is they never leave. Nowadays he'll call me two, 3 times a week because he lives in Pennsylvania. And Dad, this is going on. What would you do? How would you do this? How should I do this? He's gotten past himself that I don't have all the answers. One day I did say to him, he asked me a question and I said, I don't know, Joey. I don't know. He looked at me like I was lying to him.
Huh.
Yeah. I said, we'll figure it out. But it stunned him because he thinks I'm supposed to know everything.
Huh.
And that's the advice. You know what? If just say I don't know. The most important thing somebody can really do is to reach out and say I need help. That vulnerability is so intense. People don't want to do it. Men don't want to do that.
Yeah,
they don't want to. They just don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And it's just I don't know. Can you give me a hand? I need the help. And that's when you're at your strongest. When you feel you're at your weakest,
Hmm.
and you say, I need help, that's when you're at your strongest.
Wow, that's deep. It's interesting you mentioned that. So in my men's group, we were trying to figure out the men's group I created. We were trying to figure out our 4 pillars, and I suggested one of them should be vulnerability. And one of the guys was like, "Well, isn't that like a negative connotation? Like, isn't that a bad thing?" And I was like, "No, actually, it just means that we're just being authentic and open with each other, and just being super honest with each other, so that but it was like you said, I had to help him reframe that so that it's vulnerability is not a bad thing.
No, it's a trust thing.
Yeah, yeah,
When you're vulnerable, you're at your weakest and your strongest at the same time.
yeah.
So I think that in my story, that's where I was going with everything.
Hmm.
You know, um, I allowed my sons to make their mistakes and do their own thing, but they had to own it. They had to be responsible for it. They had to be vulnerable enough to say, "Okay, I screwed up." They have to be vulnerable enough to say, and they're finally there. I need help, Dad.
Hmm.
Can you give me some advice, or more importantly, can you write me a check?
Does that still happen at this age?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, I love the way they frame it though. Yeah, Dad, I was getting involved in this thing, but it's just financially out of my reach. But if I had the money, I could do
Uh,
it.
they know you're not going to say no, huh?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, they're all so clever, aren't they?
I know it's the passive. My wife does that sometimes. She's like, oh yeah, like it'd be nice if like someone like kind of cleaned that area. It's kind of dirty right now. I was like, by someone, do you want me to do it? Like more
Well,
specifically,
usually
right?
I'll find somebody to
Yeah,
do
yeah.
that.
She's always so passive about everything. She's like, oh man, like the dishes look kind of dirty, don't they? And I'm like, are you asking me to help you do the dishes? She's like, yes, babe. Like, how did? And I'm like, okay, you can just ask me directly. I'll do it.
That's it. Yeah.
This is
Yeah,
funny.
yep. It's crazy. Crazy.
Uh,
What are you doing next?
so I'm creating a book with Liz right now and 3 other partners on are you familiar with the Myers-Briggs type assessor, the MBTI?
Yes.
So it's a book on ENFPs. So extroverted, intuition, feelings, perception. So my other 3 co-authors that I'm doing this book with are also all ENFPs. So
Yes.
that's going to be really interesting. So I'm working with Liz on that to launch in the fall, and then I'm doing a memoir about like forgiveness and just the crazy adventures that I've gone on and just the crazy stuff that I've done. So it'll be very vulnerable, talking about like everything from drugs to all the crazy relationships I've had in the past, and kind of like yeah, it'll be a healing book. So
It'll be a big, deep book.
yeah, it'll be very deep. I think people will really enjoy it. Yeah.
Give me 1 second.
Okay. Yeah,
Excellent.
I love how you have such a big heart. You're always like giving back, and even with rescue dogs, like anyone who rescues a dog, I feel like always has a genuine good heart.
Well, the architect behind all of this is actually Donna,
Mm.
because she's actually a happiness professor. That's what they call it. She's uh,
Happiness.
that's what she teaches at the university.
Oh.
Uh, and the book we're working on is called Finding Unshakable Happiness.
Oh.
So it's positive psychology. It doesn't mean you're always smiling. It doesn't mean you're
Right.
always happy. Basically, it's what do you do when you're not? How do you how do you get into an upward spiral rather than a downward slide. So those are the tools that she teaches, all of those tools. And she practices it.
Yeah.
My son said to me one day, Dad, is she for real? Nobody's that happy all the time. I said, yes, she's authentic and genuine. Yes, she practices what she preaches. Absolutely.
That's beautiful.
So, yeah, she's keeping me honest. It's a lot of work.
Oh, well, so happy for you guys. Yeah. I mean, you can feel it. I mean, I've never met you two in person, but you can feel it through your interactions. And I think the way you speak about your spouse says a lot, right? It's some folks are constantly putting down their wives, or, they're like, oh, I can't wait to get out of the house, like things like that. But it really genuinely feels like you actually enjoy your time together.
I admire her for so many different reasons.
Yeah.
First of all, she's an ageless beauty. When I see her as in her 20s still. Her talent is off the chart. She can charm anybody all the time. I went in to buy a car, and as I'm signing for the car, I can't find her. So I get up and I'm walking through the dealership. She was in the back office throwing a yoga class together for the people that work there because they look stressed.
Aw. Wow.
But that's what she does.
Hmm.
She calls me the honey badger because my attitude is not the same.
Aw.
She keeps me thinking all the time.
Yeah, that's great. I think I'm not gonna lie, like most people when they're approaching their 70, like don't have the same mindset, right? Like I mean, I can't, that's a pretty big generalization, but I know folks who
No,
are,
it's true because people get, the older you get, the less patient you become because you realize I don't have to be a people pleaser on a continual basis.
yeah.
I can tell you what I'm thinking, and I hope you don't get offended. But if you do, that's your situation. It's not my story. And you put that mindset together like that. That's why people appear crotchety when they get older. They look like they're impatient.
Yeah.
They act crabby, but basically they're just tired of being the people pleasers. So they just, they move on from it. They're more authentic than most people realize.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're just being misread.
No, that's a good point. I feel like, I'm still relatively young, but even in the last 5 years, like every year I care a little bit less about what other people are thinking and more
Yeah,
in with myself.
absolutely. What other people think of you is none of your business. And that's a truth. The only thing you're in control of is your attitude and your emotions. You're really not, you have nothing else to be in control of. And the biggest one is people get so hung up, oh, I don't want to be judged. You're going to be judged no matter what. You just can't, appeal to everybody all the time. Everything you
Right.
do is going to be subject to somebody's disapproval or approval, and that would make you insane to try to chase all that down and be all these things to all these people. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work for no reason.
It is a lot of work. My life is exhausting.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, the only difference is with me, sometimes I don't choose my words as carefully as I should. That's a problem.
It sounds like there's a story behind that comment.
Well, I don't. Sarcasm I come off as sarcastic. People tell me all the time,
Oh.
and it's I'm just having. To me, it's an observation. It's my job to point that out.
Whether you asked me or not.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that'll rub people the wrong way sometimes.
Yeah. I definitely been guilty of saying things that people are like, maybe you should have paused like for 5 seconds and thought about it before like saying it.
Yeah, yeah. And I really don't mean to hurt anybody's feelings. So I really have to pay more attention to how I come across. Exactly, choosing my words, and especially as an author, I really should be choosing my words.
Yeah. I mean, I think you've always come across pretty well. And like, I don't think you've ever said anything that hurt anyone. Yeah, I guess my experience.
Oh, stand in line. I'll send you a number.
Maybe we haven't had enough interactions for me to encounter one of these blunt and reflections or something like that.
I've told people, if I haven't insulted you yet, the day is early. I'll get to you. I'm busy.
Yeah.
But that's about it. That's it's just another observation.
Yeah. Well, Joe, I really appreciate you being on the podcast. Like I really have enjoyed just your contributions. Excited to work on more projects together. I think there will be a part 2 to Redefining Masculinity. I think that'll be fun.
Right.
It sounds like both of us have a lot of stuff we're working on, but this is going to happen for sure.
All right. Absolutely. Well, thank you very, very much for taking the time to spend with me, and I do appreciate it.
Yeah, likewise. And
And
can't wait.
We'll stay in touch.
Yeah, we'll stay in touch. And I definitely want to come over for a drink sometime just to talk through stuff. I think I'm missing that, human to human interaction. And yeah, I think it'd be fun to have a drink with you.
Now Don is looking at me going, okay. There goes her makeup with the eye roll.
Oh my God, that's funny.
Well, yeah. Well, you know what? We can look forward to that. We should do that. We should get together as if it's at all possible for those of us that are in the neighborhood.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I'll
on an anniversary of the book.
Oh, that's such a good idea. Yeah. Let me throw out some feelers to see what dates would work. Even without the anniversary, I think people would be open to getting together,
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent.
Would you guys be down to go to meet in New York City, or is that too far?
No. I've traveled the whole world.
Touché. Okay. Let me throw some feelers out there, because some of you guys, because Boston actually we'll figure it out, because I know there's some folks that are like more up north, so we'll see what works with everyone. But if we plan it out like really far in advance, like we'll make it happen.
Yeah, that'll work.
Cool.
Davidson, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for blessing us with your wisdom. I got some takeaways, a lot of takeaways around like love and just not giving an F about what other people think. I think that's such a valuable lesson, right? I mean, there's so many young
there
people.
There goes that eye roll again.
No, I mean, but it's true, right? Because there's so many young folks that like around my age or younger than my age that like we care way too much about what other people think. And at the end of the day, like you said, like you can't please everyone. And
well, my philosophy is I'll care what you think when you pay my rent.
That's awful.
She said that's awful.
Aw.
That's awful. Really? Please, I don't pay the rent.
You're gonna pay the rent.
Oh yeah.
Wow. I think I got some splaining to do, Lucy.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. On that note.
All right. Be well.
You too. Thank you so much
All right.
for your contributions, and we'll see each other soon, I'm sure.
Excellent.
Take
Take
care.
care.